Excellent. Okay. So I'm sure they will continue to scroll as we have this session, so you can take an opportunity to look at them. A number of issues related to the number of representatives, issues related to budgetary allocations, a theme that has been in this legislative summit, whether the county assemblies should have independent budgets. And I think the other point that's coming through quite clearly here from a number of people is whether we need two houses of parliament. On that note, let me allow and invite very warmly Honorable Shege Mwaura, Acting Speaker of the Nairobi County Assembly, to take us through his panel and to take us through, again, one of the biggest debates facing this country at the moment. Karibu.
Thank you so much, Irongo. Good morning, everyone. I am so pleased that we are going to have this final session with the kind of numbers I'm seeing. For those of us who've been in this business of making the exams happen, and this being the final session and the final day, and you can see the numbers who are here, I think we've done ourselves a good job. Give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I think also in terms of the organization and presentation of this time's summit, in terms of the content, in terms of engagement from the questions that are coming from my colleagues, has been awesome. So I think this session will also live to its billing in terms of how we are going to move with it. I've already agreed with my panel in terms of how we are going to spend time on this side. I am also of a bigger view that the session should also have a lot of input from your end. So in as much as possible, we stick to our timelines, and also when we give it to the plenary, you also stick to a timeline so that we are able to get as many people involved in this discussion as possible, bearing in mind it's also a live session that is going on. Is that agreed? Fantastic. Thank you so much. Straight on, now we'll have a presenter. Mr. Wachira Maina. So Wachira Maina is a constitutional comparative lawyer. He's going to take us through issues of this referendum business. And Wachira, I am a layman in law, yeah? And so, so many of us, we know other things, but we want this thing in the simplest terms. Do we need a referendum? You've seen the numbers. What is in it for Wanjiko? What is in it for the legislators in terms of improving their work to serve Wanjiko better? And then now from there, you give us a presentation which will take about 15 minutes is good enough. And then now I go to the panel that is going to give us an input from his presentation, and then we move from there. So I will give introductions as they come. I'll reduce the introductions and the profiles as much as possible so that most of the work goes to the actual debate. Over to you, Mr. Wachira Maina, for the presentation. Give him a round of applause as he approaches the bank is over there.
Thank you, Chair. The presentation is at the back, so if you could load it up, please. Thank you. Morning, everyone. My presentation is on the referendum, and it's called Balancing Political Interest and Constitutionalism, the Key Issues on the Constitution. If you look at the subtitle, of my presentation, it says the real questions beyond Tangatanga and Kieleweke, because I think the debate has been too polarized between two political camps. Now, I want to begin, my presentation is in two parts. The first part is to discuss some of the political issues, and then the second part is to discuss the constitutional issues that I think should be getting to the referendum, if we get to the referendum at all. I was told this would work, but it's not working. Can you move to the next slide, please? Now, therefore, the political problem in Kenya right now is not the design of the referendum. It is lack of leadership. And there are four primary political issues. We have split leaders and we have split citizens. I'm not going to call them, I'm not going to organize them into Tangatanga and Kieleweke. I'm just going to call them a neutral language, Camp 1, Camp 2. Camp 1's interest is how to use the constitutional reform process to frustrate the ambitions of their competitors from ascending to office. Call them constitutional instrumentalists. they want to use the constitution as an instrument. Camp 2's interest is how to create a deadlock so that any amendments that targeted at them cannot succeed. Call them constitutional spoilers. Then there are a lot of non-political groups and observers out there who believe in constitutional change, but they are nervous that if they support constitutional change, the spoilers and the instrumentalists are going to undo the 2010 constitution. Call them constitutional immobilists. They've been immobilized. And then there are either-neither opportunists. These are the guns for hire out there who are blogging, and they know that whenever political stakes are high, the cash is also high. Call them constitutional profiteers. These are the four primary political interests that are involved in constitutional reform right now. What is the result? The result is Kenyans are now behaving like a country on a suicide pact. The polarized leaders, who in my view present a clear and present danger to the constitution, are loudest and most visible on the agenda for change. Those who have most to lose from a bad constitution and who should have useful things to say are the most conspicuously silent. Amidst the confusion, the profiteers are making money and damn the nation. In short, my view is that we have become the 737 MAX nation. We know it is not safe to fly, and we are all boarding. What is urgently needed? What is urgently needed is a proper agenda for the referendum on the Constitution. The interests at stake, what are they? There are two elements. One interest is the long-term survival of the country, and the second interest is the reforms that can lower the stakes on political conflict. We need to lower the stakes on political conflict. Yaani kwa Kiswahili tuwasema, we would like mbinu za kikatiba na sera za kumaliza siasa za kumalizana. That's what we need to get rid of. What is the role of the 2022 election? Because that's all we are. I take the view that who becomes president in 2022 is important. It is even necessary. But it is not sufficient. We have behaved as if who becomes president in Kenya in 2022 is sufficient for stabilization of the country beyond 2022. It isn't. There are things that need to be done to stabilize the country. What are those things? I want to describe to you how I think Kenya's political problems become constitutional issues. And there are 5 issues I want to discuss. Issue number 1, the political problem. The first political problem is we need to reduce the stakes and violence in the contest for the presidency. That's the first political problem we need to deal with. Now, how do we answer that question constitutionally? We answer that question by asking, should we have a presidential or parliamentary system, and how should we vote for the president? That is how we answer that question in a constitutional terms. Number 2, we need to strengthen devolution through the redesign of parliament. So the question we need to ask ourselves is, constitutionally speaking, is how do we strengthen the Senate? And should the Senate have any links with counties? Currently, it doesn't. Question number 3, we need to eliminate the winner-take-all logic of the electoral system we have in Kenya. So the constitutional question then becomes, should we have a proportional representation system like South Africa, or should we have a mixed electoral system like Germany? Number 4, we need to reduce the costs of election. Why should Kenya pay so much for such a flawed democracy? I will be coming to the numbers, and you see we have one of the most expensive elections in the world. Number 5, we need to reduce the role of political entrepreneurs. Who are political entrepreneurs? Political entrepreneurs are those people who own parties, and therefore they are the people whose ability we need to rein in, their ability to capture and subvert the electoral system during nominations. We need to find the methods of dealing with them, because that is the biggest political electoral problem we have in Kenya, in my estimation. Okay, so what is the issue with relate to presidential or parliamentary? The previous system that we had was a mix of the British parliamentary system and the American presidential system. The result was we had a president without checks and we had a parliament without teeth. So the solution we proposed when we created the 2010 constitution was a presidential system which is similar to the American system. We can talk about this later, but the key thing you want to understand about this, the difference. In a parliamentary system, the head of government, the prime minister, is not directly elected by the people. He is elected by members of the National Assembly or the members of parliament. In a presidential system, the president is directly elected by the people. Now, this creates a problem. that we haven't experienced yet in Kenya, but I'm sure we'll experience one day. It creates a problem in constitutional law called dual mandate. What does dual mandate mean? A dual mandate means you have two political branches of government, parliament and the presidency, which are both directly elected by the people. In a parliamentary system, you don't. In a parliamentary system, you have only one political branch that is elected by the people, parliament, because the prime minister is not directly elected by the people. Now, this is the biggest problem in a presidential system. Why? See, when there is a conflict between the legislature and the presidency, there is no way of resolving that conflict by appealing to democracy. Because parliament says we've been democratically elected, and the president says I have been democratically elected. The problem you have in Venezuela now, where the parliament has elected their president, and there is another president in office, is exactly the problem of dual mandate. And it's a very serious problem in constitutional law. I don't want to get into the details here. So how do we normally resolve these kind of problems in the presidential system? We impeach the president. If you are members, if you are representatives like you impeach the president, you withhold budgets, or the president resorts to emergency power. That's how you resolve those problems. All of those problems are extra-constitutional. They are not things that, no, they're not extra-constitutional. All of those problems are complicated. If you want to impeach the president in a presidential system, it's a very difficult process. The numbers are very high. So, I don't want to go into this. So, how do we reform the executive? The options available on the table are the following. You can have a pure parliamentary system, like they have in Britain, Germany, and South Africa. Or you can have a parliamentary system there are several models you can have. The first model is a parliamentary system with our electoral system. Our electoral system is a winner-take-all system. If you have 3 candidates running in a constituency, an MP gets 40% of the vote, another one gets 35% of the vote, another one gets 30% of the vote. The MP with 40% wins, although they don't have a majority of the vote. They don't have a majority of the vote because number 2 and number 3 got more votes than number 1 together. Do you see what I'm saying? That if the winner gets 40% and number 2 gets 35% and number 3 gets 25%, you have 60% voting against the winner. So that system is called a plurality system, and it's very wasteful, and we'll talk about it in a moment. Or you can have a parliamentary system like they have in Britain, which has a 2-chamber parliament, but only the lower house can pass a vote of no confidence. Or you can have one like Italy, where you have a prime minister, but either house can pass a vote of no confidence. Or you can have one like Germany, where you cannot pass a vote of no confidence unless you agree on the replacement. So in Germany, you can't remove the chancellor. You remove the chancellor, but you have to agree on an alternative. Okay? Or you can have a parliamentary presidency like South Africa. Or you can have a mixed system like Sri Lanka and France. We can discuss the options. The technical details can be discussed. But these are the options on the table. Okay? Problem number 2, the legislature. We have a 2-chamber parliament in Kenya, which has none of the benefits of a 2-chamber legislature. That's the biggest problem we have. Okay? What is the old problem we tried to solve? The old problem we tried to solve was that we had a 1-chamber parliament, which was a tool of the ruling party. Because all you had to do to change anything in parliament was to call a party caucus. And then the party caucus would go to parliament and enact whatever they agreed. Okay? Now, and the parliament at that time was basically used by MPs to lobby for ministerial positions. It was a tool for lobbying. So we proposed a 2-chamber parliament in which the Senate would protect devolution, but would also act as a check and balance on the National Assembly. Now, the new problem is, as a result of poor design, the Senate is not performing any of the functions we thought it would perform. So what is the solution? The solution is this. We have directly elected senators who don't have the same powers as MPs. Now, in a 2-chamber system, like Germany, like South Africa, normally what you have is the senators are elected by county assemblies, or they are nominated by county governments, because they are supposed to be representatives of counties. In a system like America, senators are directly elected, but they have the same powers as members of the House of Representatives. In other words, in Kenya, the problem we are facing is the following. Either we change how we elect senators so that the voting is aligned with their powers, or we increase their powers. my suggestion is that we should increase their powers so that they can play the role we wanted them to play, which was the role of playing as a balancing chamber for the National Assembly. Okay? I don't want to go to the details of how it works in other countries, but that is the option. The electoral system, the third issue. We have an electoral system that retains too much of the winner-take-all logic that we had in the previous electoral system. It doesn't achieve better representation. It doesn't achieve more proportional representation. And our goal is to achieve better representation and to achieve more proportional representation. Okay, I don't want to go into this, but the key thing is, when you have a system like the one we have, it is very wasteful of votes. It wastes votes because, remember the example I gave at the beginning, the 60% who voted against the 40% winner, all those votes are wasted. A proportional representation system ensures that all those votes are converted into a seat in parliament. That's what a proportional representation system tries to do. So you can have a system, you can keep the current system with its wastage, or you can have a new system with more proportional representation. Let me give you some quick examples. If you look at the election of Margaret Thatcher in 1983, the Conservatives got 42.4% of the vote, but got 62% of the seats. In other words, because they use a system like ours, there is no relationship usually between the number of votes you get and the number of seats you get. You can get very many seats from very few votes. Look at 1998 in Lesotho. In Lesotho, the opposition won nearly 40% of the vote, but got only 1 out of 80 seats in parliament. So this system is very, very wasteful and very unfair. Okay? Now, if you look at South Africa, just a quick example, if you look at South Africa, if you look at those two elections that I have put up there, 2004 and 2009, you can see there is a very close relationship between votes won and seats won. 69.7% votes won, 69.8% seats won. There is a very close relationship. Now, so we need to debate this question as a country. There are many forms of proportional representation. I don't want to go into them right now. What are the reform options? The reform options is to keep the current system, or to have a full proportional system like South Africa, or to have a mixed system like they have in Germany. The most interesting question for me is, how should we choose the president? You remember the way we choose our president is that we have 50% plus 1. That's the person who gets that. You either get that in the first round or you get that. Okay. So there are very many options of choosing the president. I'll come back to them in Q&A. Now, issue 4, election costs. Kenya has the worst democracy money can buy. Because Kenya holds one of the most expensive elections in the world. If Kenyan elections cost the same as they cost in Rwanda, the government of Kenya would be able to pay at least 3 months worth of NHIF contributions for 6 million Kenyans. If we spend the amount of money that Rwanda spends on elections, let me show you what the numbers are. Elections in Kenya, the last year's election, they cost $36.7 per voter who turned out, and 28.9% per registered voter. In Rwanda, they cost only $1.05 per voter, which was a very significant fall from the $1.7 per voter that Rwanda had spent in 2010. Elections in Kenya are costing 36 times more per voter than they cost in Rwanda. If you look at the other numbers, you can see the global average is $5 per voter. That's a global average. We are doing $6.7. Okay? So we need to address that. We need to have better oversight on election costs. We need to have inventory control of unused supplies. I was involved in electoral reforms in 2017. And one of the things we discovered is half the equipment that had been bought for the previous election was not functional or was missing. So we are very wasteful.
Two minutes. Two minutes,
okay. The last issue, the role of political entrepreneurs, parties and party primaries. The problem is that parties have owners, who I call political entrepreneurs. And in over 80% of the cases, the owners determine who gets elected. Parties are the most effective tools for frustrating the will of the people in Kenya. And the thing to remember is that elections in Kenya cannot be free and fair if the primary mechanisms for elections, political parties, are as compromised as they currently are. Now, political parties are mere electoral vehicles in Kenya. That's what they are. So, how do we go about creating credible parties? One of the reform options is to have a credible IEBC, which is a big challenge. And the challenge isn't constitutional. The challenge is actually operational and administrative. To create a credible IEBC. But you can't create a credible IEBC so long as the interests of the commissioners are aligned with the interests of incumbency or the powers that be. You're not going to create an independent IEBC that way. So we need to start thinking about how to create an independent IEBC. And one way we can influence parties is to have their parties tied to having their elections supervised by a reformed IEBC. Thank you. This is a lot heavier than I intended. There is a lot more we could talk about, but on constraints of time, let me stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Presenter. Keep the mic. Wachira Maina never disappoints. Yeah, from political problems, profiteers, political entrepreneurs, and all. We now go to the section of the reactions from the panel. And I'll start with Senator Mtula. You're a practitioner. What is in it for the Senate? What is in it for the county assemblies?
Thank you.
All right? 5 minutes, Senator.
Thank you. To be or not to be, Shakespeare once asked that question. Do we need a referendum or not? And I'll be brief, but I'll put my presentation in terms of questions because all of you understand the questions. I'll put the question, do we actually need a referendum to have the reform we need? Question. What are the amendments? Question. Can we do hybrid amendments? That is a question. And is the Building Bridges initiative building bridges or digging holes? Question. I've had people speak about the referendum, and I'm satisfied when they speak about the referendum, they have not read the Constitution. When they say you're going to have a referendum this year, it's like when they are saying Santa Claus is coming for Christmas. And the reason is this. If you look at the Constitution, before I get into the areas, a bill for the amendment of the Constitution will commence either at the Senate or National Assembly. Number one. If it is published and read in the first reading, you will not commence with the second reading until the expiry of 90 days. That is both National Assembly and Senate. If you start doing the calculations, that is already 6 months, both in the National Assembly and Senate. Are you going to have a referendum this year? Good question. After that happens, the president is supposed to send it to IEBC, who are supposed to have a referendum within 90 days. That's another 3 months. If you do the calculations, we have already overrun the time for doing a referendum. The second issue, a referendum under Article 255 can only be on the 10 issues that are in Article 255. One of them, and I'll concentrate on only two, functions of parliament. Do you need a referendum to have a deputy prime minister and a prime minister in the question of functions of parliament under Article 255? It doesn't say structure. It talks about functions. Devolution, which is something that I want to talk about because it's a pet subject. Objective of devolution. Under Article 203, we, the Senate, have already amended and have a draft that says in Article 203 that national government should remit not less than 40% to counties of current revenue. Do you actually need a referendum to amend Article 203? That is my question. You don't need. So that is something that we can achieve. it brings me to the third issue. Is it possible to have a hybrid amendment? Means those issues that will require a referendum, like we have pointed, and those will not need? Good question. Because when the president sends the questions for the referendum, the only 2 or 3 issues that I think that will be in this referendum is objects of devolution. Number 2, objects and structure of devolution. Number 2, functions of parliament. Number 3, term of office of the president, and possibly functions of parliament. 4. So in the Building Bridges initiative, the questions we expect from them are possibly the 4. The rest, supremacy of the Constitution, I do not think they want to touch those issues. Bill of Rights, etc., etc. This forum, the summit, is the biggest collection of legislators in Kenya. That's number 1. I expected that in this platform, that's why I'm disappointed by the executive, by not showing up here, that you would ask, because the Okoa Kenya draft had the word fund in it. Is it possible that we can structure the ward development fund in division of revenue in an amendment to the Constitution? If the answer is yes, why hasn't the assemblies represented here prepared a draft for discussion either at Senate or the Building Bridges initiative? Munangoja nini? Na munangoja nani? Because it is a fundamental question. CDF, Constituency Development Fund, is under something we call national interest in the budget of this republic. This country is divided into 47 counties under Article 6. Development in counties can only be done in wards. So having a ward development fund is not a contradiction of the Constitution. It's just the way you structure it. And I think it's something that ought to be discussed. If you increase the power and the money, because resources that are follow functions under Article 187 makes governors more powerful, are we going to let the governors, the executive, to run away with the money at 40% and leave the county assemblies the way you are, as weak as you are, as complaining spirit as you are? The answer is no. We must first of all strengthen the primary oversight organization in devolution, and that is the county assembly. If you are listening, you would say amen.
Wrap up, Senator.
The second one would be the Senate. What Wachira Maina talks about is correct, that we compromised the structure of the Senate, yet it's supposed to protect devolution. As I wind up, because there are many things we can do to protect and uplift the work of the Senate, including following the Australian example of allowing the budget estimates to be debated in the floor of the Senate. Even if we do not amend them, we can make recommendations like the Australian Senate. If it's national debt, we want to tell Kenyans it concerns counties, because national debt now has become the first charge on the consolidated fund. It must be discussed at Senate if we are going to truly protect this country, because this country involves counties. Therefore, it is my humble view, because the timelines that are in the Constitution are so strict, the election of 2022 is known. If the Building Bridges initiative does not work very quickly, we will not have constitutional reform as we want it. Because the constitutional reform must be followed by legal amendments. The A to Z of the constitutional reform must be given. So, and the last one is the threshold of passing the Constitution. Because I believe now we cannot do a popular initiative under Article 257, we will do it under parliamentary initiative. under Article 256. How many members do you need in the Senate? 42. How many do you need in the National Assembly? More than 230. In the current political climate that Wachira Maina talks about, Kieleweke, Kutangatanga, and others, are we building consensus? Are we polarizing the country? Will we get the thresholds or not? That's why I asked the question, is BBI building a bridge or digging a hole? Thank you.
Thank you very much. A round of applause for Senator Mtula. Good questions. Chairman Kaf, in your final points as you depart, you'll have to ask your members, do we have a position on the referendum? I think that has been done very well. My next panelist, Madam Kagushia from the Gender Commission. Madam Josephine, the Senate is fully compliant in the gender issues. The county assemblies are fully compliant. I don't know about the National Assembly. My panel is compliant in terms of gender. Over to you. Tell us, what do you think about the referendum?
Okay, thank you.
5 minutes.
Okay. So the CS, Cabinet Secretary, Honorable Omalwa, and all the legislators, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to present on behalf of Commissioner Honorable Priscilla Nyokabi, who ought to be here making this presentation today, but because of unavoidable circumstances, she was not able to, though she was here for the pre-summit on Sunday and Saturday. And we're looking at the Commission, we protect the interest of the special interest groups, those ones that the media do not care about, those ones that do not get any voice in this country. And these special interest groups are the persons with disability, the youth, women, minority and marginalized communities, the children, and also the elderly. So we are saying we are following implementation of the Constitution, and we are only for protecting the gains that have been made by the Constitution of Kenya 2010. And in particular, we are looking at the 2/3 gender rule, that is Article 27 on equality and freedom from discrimination, and H1B as well on the 2/3 gender rule. We are looking at the gender parity in employment in the public service, as given in Article 232. And we are also looking at 5% employment of persons with disabilities in Article 54, and youth access to employment in Article 55, and the 70-30 rule by the County Government Act at the counties. So the Commission proposes that every county implements all the above provisions and considers policies geared towards promoting equality and freedom from discrimination of special interest groups. And key among them would be legislating on gender mainstreaming, policies and laws, looking at the PWD's Act and policy and implementing it, and inclusion of minorities. And we are saying, in the event that there is an opportunity for constitutional review in Kenya, as the Commission, as we give our views to the Building Bridges initiative, the Commission has identified key areas which are in need of reform for protecting the special interest groups. And these areas are inclusion of the youth. We know very well Article 55 does not give an immediate threshold or a threshold that can be measured, and it just talks about giving legal provisions that youth can be mainstreamed in their employment and also in their appointing. And we are saying as a commission that we are proposing measurable reservations, let's say of 20% of all elective and appointive positions for the youth, and the provision of legal threshold which can be supported and promoted with strict qualification of a youth as being 18 to 35, not more, not less. So on inclusion of women, we are saying women have not been fully involved in governance, and while the Constitution provides for affirmative actions, women participation and involvement, the same has not been fully adhered to in all sectors, and we know all these sectors, both in appointive and elective. And we're looking at the area of constitutionalizing of the opposite gender rule in elective and appointive positions in Kenya. And we are also looking at legislating on the 2/3 gender rule And we are recommending that immediate actualization of Article 27, Subarticle 8, and Article 81, Subarticle B, and insulating the process of nomination from political process by entrenching the principles and procedures of nominating women in the Constitution. We have just heard that political parties belong to individuals, and these individuals are certainly not women. So we need something on that. So the Commission further recommends that the procedure of nomination should be an election that allows citizenry participation in electing their women representatives, as opposed to leaving the nomination to political parties. We are also looking at constitutional silences on the two-thirds principle.
Wrap up.
While we appreciate that the Constitution has been explicit in application of two-thirds in some areas, we also note that the Constitution is silent on the same in certain areas. For instance, the membership of the National Cabinet, and this has hampered inclusion of women in cabinet and indeed public spheres. For instance, with the enlarged current cabinet as compared to the first term of President Kenyatta, the women inclusion has reduced instead of progressing upwards. And this has been aided by the constitutional silence on membership of the cabinet and other positions like the judiciary and the public service. And we are recommending that we should promote effectively inclusion. The Commission also recommends removal of constitutional silences in appointive positions, and we are also looking at compliance with the provisions, because this is an area that has been failing us. On inclusion of persons with disabilities,
1 minute.
We note that the Constitution provides for 5% progressive, and at the Commission, we are saying, should there be a review of this Constitution, that word progressive should be removed. And on the same, we are also proposing electoral colleges where persons with disabilities will be electing their persons that they want to represent them both at the Senate, at the National Assembly, and also at the county assemblies. We have a formula. We need to attain the 5%, and we should be giving this later. So for the term, we are also proposing that the term of the nominated persons with disabilities should not be more than 2 terms. Once someone is elected by the respective categories, that is the persons with disabilities, and including the youth, they should go for a maximum of 2 terms. We are also looking at the sign language. We note that this is a requirement under the Constitution, 54D, but we are lacking this in most of our public and private institutions, and we would like this implemented effectively so that now we can aid communication between service providers and also the recipients. On inclusion of minorities and marginalized groups, we are looking at the county, and especially at the county level, we are looking at the County Government Acts, and we are proposing that this particular section be implemented where the 30% of non-dominant communities are employed in the counties. And we are saying, in all these debates of constitutional review, even if we want to punguza mizigo, we should first of all protect the gains that we have made, the gains that have been brought by this constitution, and then now we start talking about punguzing mizigo. Because if we are too sincere with ourselves, we can talk about reducing the number of constituencies if it's punguza mizigo that we want. And that way, we'll also achieve 50-50 gender parity if we are only to elect 2 members of parliament at the county level, 1 woman and 1 man. And that is all for now.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Give a round of applause for Josephine Kagusha from the Gender Commission. We need to look into the formula for putting, electing, nominating members to the county assemblies and all the other bodies. My next panelist, Speaker Kaberia from Meru. What is in it for the county assemblies? What do you think? What are the assemblies saying? What are your people saying? Karibu sana. 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, moderator. I will utilize my 5 minutes well. I know very many issues have been raised, but allow me just to highlight the interest of the county assemblies and the citizens at the grassroots in the constitutional discourse. I know this is a matter which can take even like 2, 3, 4 days, but I'll just try to highlight a few issues so that we move on within my 5 minutes. So I have classified my presentation into 2 parts. As I do that, allow me to welcome the Right Honorable Speaker of the Senate, who has just joined us. Welcome, Right Honorable Speaker of the Senate. Yes, that has taken me 1 minute. On the part of the county assemblies, part of the county assemblies, let me say that county assemblies have a lot of interests on this constitutional discourse, debate which is going on, because firstly, county assemblies are institutions created by the constitution of this country. And of course, through the principle of devolution. And I will just state broadly that on behalf of the county assemblies, as well as citizenry of this country, any amendment whose purpose is to promote the principles and objects of devolution, that amendment or those amendments are welcome. Because this country has seen and benefited a lot through devolution. And of course, for the county assemblies, we do oversight, represent, and legislate. So any amendment which will facilitate those processes on behalf of the county assemblies, they are welcome. And I can just highlight a few. I know and I appreciate that the Constitution cannot have each and everything. Constitution only contains broad principles, as I was taught by my law teachers, and I can see even one of the members of the committee of experts is here with us. Of course, they couldn't be able to include everything, but let me say that a provision dealing with the challenges which the county assemblies are facing is very important. If we have to amend the constitution, firstly, issues to do with the financial autonomy and independence of the county assemblies, they ought to be considered when we are reviewing our constitution. Secondly, any provision which will prevent interference of the county assemblies by other actors and stakeholders are welcome. Of course, we have had many interferences with respect. Of course, we have even received court orders from courts for the county assemblies not to do this and this and this. And of course, we respect the principle of separation of powers. But of course, that notwithstanding, that challenge is there. So we have also to be protected by the law. And any provision providing for the welfare of the county assemblies and even the MCs, of course, is also very important. I know that we may trivialize that issue, but this is something which is extremely pertinent, because we have had situations and discussion elsewhere and even here by these honorable MCs. And I'm stating this with respect. They're asking, why is it that the MC cannot get this and this, yet other stakeholders who are our friends, probably at the Senate and the National Assembly, are getting this and this?
2 minutes.
Discriminatory aspect of application of the Constitution. That issue is there. And of course, provisions dealing with, as I stated, challenges which the county assemblies face are also welcome. And lastly, on the part of the MCs, of course, I do support what my very good friend, Senator Mutula Kilonzo, as he stated, any provision increasing the revenue of the counties is very much welcome. If you look at the provision of Article 203, it states that the equitable distribution of the finances from the national government to county government is pegged at least 15% of the last audited national government accounts. But of course, we have done we are going a step ahead. That provision should not be static because we need development at the counties. And that is also one of the areas of interest by the county assemblies. Now allow me to turn now to the citizens and the grassroots, because we do interact with the citizens and the grassroots.
Speaker, 30 seconds on that. 30 seconds.
Okay, very well. Much was said, but let me say that this, of course, the issue to do with the Article 204 of the Constitution, Equalization Fund, it is pegged at 1%. And you appreciate that this fund is to alleviate the marginalized areas of this country so that at least they can come to a certain level. And also, you appreciate that that fund is utilized by the national government to the counties. Then the question which begs an answer is, we are now devolving all the functions to the counties, but yet the national government is still holding the equalization fund. Why don't you even have this fund be taken to the counties so that the counties can utilize this fund? And of course, any provision which will promote peace, unity, and integration of this country is welcome. We have electoral laws, which are also part of the debate, whether you should have elections in August or December. Of course, that's a matter which is there, and of course, there are reasons for that. And to sum up, you appreciate, of course, that whereas we are appreciating the principle of national integration, the counties, or rather, I don't know of any provision of the law which allows the inter-county transfer of staff. How do you promote national integration when a staff who was employed in a certain county when he was 20 years or 30 years will work in that county until that staff retires? We cannot promote national integration by having that, by not reviewing that principle, and of course thinking around. And lastly, of course, Article 179 of the Constitution, we should have a responsible and accountable government. Why am I saying this? There has been a debate whether to elect CECs from the MCAs, whether to get CAs from the MPs and senators. This is something we should be considered by the people of this country when they are reviewing the Constitution, because I know at one time the Constitution will be reviewed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Give a round of applause for Speaker Kaberia, who's also the chairman of the Legal Services at the County Assemblies Forum. I hope your questions are piling up. Yeah, I'm promising to give you some time so that you're able also to interrogate. My next panelist, Honorable Otiende, I've still saved your number as Obundsman. Yeah, but this time round, I think I want you to come out with the Committee of Experts angle. You are the one who knows how this thing was happening. So I hope, surely after, it's not even 10 years, do we really need a referendum? Over to you, sir.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I was honored to be part of the Committee of Experts, and therefore I can tell you a lot about why we wrote what. I see Jeremiah Nyegenya is here with me, who was with me there. I've then been honored to be part of the implementation in various categories now in the National Assembly. But in 5 minutes, I can't tell you all things. I can only tell you 4 quick things. And therefore, allow me to say those 4. First of all, do we require to change the constitution? You answered it. 70% of you said yes. I can confirm to you that your views on that matter appear to accord with increasingly with the rest of Kenyans. The Legal Affairs Committee of Parliament, when they posed that question late last year, records that up to 70% answered yes. IDN and Infotrack, I think in March, when they posed that question, record that up to 65% answered in the affirmative. So in my view, therefore, and I agree with Wachira Maina, the question is that not if, but the question is, what do we need to change? How do we need to change it, and when? And unless we get those questions right, we will keep wanting to change it 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, because previously, the 2010 Constitution took us 20 years. So let us focus more on what, how, and when. In my respectful opinion, the idea of reviewing the Constitution is not on account of what some people have said, that it was said it was 20% bad or 20% good or vice versa. It is because, and that is the truth, when we were writing the Constitution, there were so many interests that no single group of persons got everything they wanted. The 2010 Constitution is a compromise document in every chapter, including the chapters that are giving us problems. And therefore, the question should now be, having come out with a compromise document on any of the issues that are of concern, we must now ask, with the benefit of 10 years, has it achieved what we intended it to achieve? And if it has not, then we change. If it has, then we retain it. The idea of reviewing the Constitution is not necessarily that you change. You can actually review and say, we are satisfied, and you stay with it. On just 2 examples that I'll give you that Wachira spoke to, the question of system of government. How did we end up with a presidential system? Those of you who are in Parliament know what happened in Naivasha. The majority of Kenyans wanted a parliamentary system, and that is on record. But there are those who wanted a presidential system. It also happens that those who wanted a presidential system were against devolution. So there had to be a compromise. Give us devolution, we give you a presidential system. 10 years down the line, I am sure there's not a single person in this country who can doubt the benefits of devolution. And therefore, 10 years down the line, we can now revisit that question of system of government without bringing the question of devolution into it. Senate and National Assembly. Has it worked? I think everybody in this country knows that it has not worked. There has always been friction between the National Assembly and the Senate, with the Senate claiming to be the upper house, the National Assembly claiming that is the house of retirees. That is the truth. I have come into it. Yes? The irony is, the original formulation of the Senate was the upper house. And it was the upper house for the reasons that Wachira Maina explained. But curiously, most of my predecessors who were in the National Assembly, when they realized there will be another house that is above them, they said no. And they removed the Senate. Senate as a house did not come back from Naivasha. So what did we do? We said, okay, we will tremendously reduce all the powers of the Senate, including calling it the upper house. But we will retain it in one respect. Let it be the primary protector of devolution. So we ended up with the Senate having a sole mandate to protect devolution. The interpretations by the Supreme Court, the approach of the National Assembly has not even helped that mandate. So should we continue with that situation? Perhaps not. It is now time to re-examine, because many of my predecessors who hated the idea of the Senate subsequently became senators. And now every time they meet me, they say, why didn't you make us an upper house? And sometimes I get my records and remind them of the specific meetings and tell them, see what you said then. Now it is time to allow them to examine the role of the Senate without those issues. I mean, I can speak to about 20 or 25 reasons. Take the question of revenue allocation that was being spoken to by my brother, Mtula Kilonzo Jr. It may be so that you do not need to amend the Constitution to increase the allocation to the counties. It may be so. But we also know that we deal with national governments whose primary starting point is to diminish funds that go to the county. That is why we put the minimum allocation of 15. Should we increase that minimum allocation in the Constitution? Maybe yes, but there's a more fundamental question. The bigger problem now is not even the percentage of allocation. The bigger problem is when and whether that money comes. Money is allocated, but by the time it's 1 year or 1 month to the end of the financial year, only 40 or 50% of what was allocated has now come. And it's not unique to counties, even governmental departments. So that every year, and I'm a member of PAC, we review the work and we ask them, why didn't you spend 70% of your allocation? And they say, that allocation, by 2 weeks to the end of the financial year, had not come. How would we spend it? Isn't it time to consider not just percentages, but directives in terms of when that money should come? You can take one other example, and I will stop there in terms of examples. The Salaries and Remuneration Commission. When we put that commission in place, it was intended to bring sanity to the pay of public officers without any intimidation by anybody. Has SRC succeeded in that mandate? What has happened, one, is that there are instances, and there are many, that many public officers have succeeded in intimidating SRC to maintain the pay. And I speak as a member of the National Assembly, which is one of the culprits. But more importantly, the idea of SRC has now become a hindrance. The idea should be, if you fix the salaries, then when people negotiate a CBA, you should ensure they get it. But instead, what happens now is that SRC fixes the salary, CBAs are negotiated, whether it's with the county governors or with the national government. They are not implemented. When you come to SRC, they say, ours is only to fix. Nobody takes responsibility for implementation. Now, just very quickly, in my view, 3 things should happen. One is any approach to changing the constitution must not be the approaches we've had in the National Assembly. Individual sectoral approaches of one person wanting to amend only one thing that benefit them. It must be a holistic approach, which considers the effect of that amendment on the entire constitution. 2, populist ideas of changes can be good, but they can be detrimental. There are things that Kenyans want to hear, and you can promise them that those are the things that will change. But when then it comes to the real change and they don't see them, they will get disheartened. I can tell you that Kenyans are a very interesting lot of people. Right now, if we ask, how many people agree that we should reduce the number of wards? Most of you might agree or not. How many people agree we should reduce the number of constituencies? How many people agree we should reduce the number of senators and governors? While many will agree, when you then ask them, can we remove your ward? Who agrees that we can remove their ward here? Can we remove your constituency? Can we remove your county? But it is very popular to say, let us reduce counties, wards, and all. I can tell you with the benefit of the committee of experts. You will never take away from Kenyans what you've given them. When we were working on the constitution and we wanted to use the district as the focus of devolution, and we realized there were 300, and we tried to reduce, they told us, if you reduce ours, we are rejecting that referendum. And that was the answer everywhere. When we wanted to remove CDF, they said, if that constitution is inconsistent with CDF, then leave that constitution and leave us with CDF. When we came to the provincial administration, about 70% told us, if you touch that one, and that is the only thing we know, then you stay with your constitution, we stay with the provincial administration. What am I saying? In this discussion, let us focus on how to circumvent those things. You will not be able to remove a county. You will not be able to remove a constituency. You will not be able to remove a ward. But you can design ways of reducing the numbers. You can design ways of circumventing it. And therefore, populist ideas like with the Third Way Alliance and all that, and the Ekuro Ikot was with us, he knows that is impossible, is raising the hope without bringing the solution. My last point, and this point was made by Mutula. We now need to focus because time is of essence. The initiative in terms of change can be a popular initiative which takes very long. It can be a parliamentary-led initiative and there's right now none. Or it can be an initiative through the executive and others which then still comes to parliament and to the people, like the BBI. Whichever initiative it is, and right now it appears the closest is the BBI, it needs to get the moment right. It must strike when the constitutional moment is there. If it is lost, then we'll forever be saying, let us want to change. And how do we do it? In my view, the only way to meaningfully do this is not to start putting individual questions to Kenyans, that there are 50 questions to an old mama asking him, do you answer yes or no to this? No. It is by whatever debate and process, carry the country, build a document so that it is one document, bring it to a referendum if you must, and you either accept it or you don't. If you accept, you have a new constitution. If you don't, we stay with the old one. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Honorable Otiende. I did cut in some slack because of the insights from the Committee of Experts, and of course he lived to the billing. My next panelist, Dr. Collins Odote, a governance expert, and also consults widely for county assemblies, including our new constitution that will be deliberated in the General Assembly of the County Assemblies Forum. So over to you. I need to hear your analysis, yeah, and your legal cascading of how this thing needs to end. 5 minutes, thanks.
Thanks, Chair. And I will make 5 points, and unlike Otiende, I will not say there are 4 and make them 10. So there will surely be 5. Point number 1, on which I agree with him and disagree with Senator Mutula, I think the question should not be, Senator, whether we need a referendum, because that is answering a question of process, not substance. The question of substance should be whether we need constitutional reform. And on that, I agree with Otiende that we actually do, and 70% of us in this room agree with it. I think the bigger problem should be that we should ensure that as we reform the constitution, we don't politicize the process. And Wachira gave us an excellent typology of instrumentalists, spoilers, immobilizers, and profiteers. And my urge to the legislators in this room is, as we amend the constitution, whether we go through the popular route or the parliamentary route, senators and county assemblies have an important role to play. What current role are you playing? Are you instrumentalists? Are you spoilers? Are you profiteers? Are you immobilizers? I would urge you to move away from those 4 groups and become leaders of the process. Because of my second point. The second point, and I agree with Wachira's second point, is that in amending this constitution, those of you in this room stand to gain tremendously. Because I think one of the most transformative aspects of our constitution is devolution. But the part that has also been given short shrift in implementation is devolution. So reforming the constitution must fix some of the problems that devolution and the legislatures that work on the devolved space are facing. As we do so, I again want to agree with Otiende that I think the question must be, there are certain things that we should not be reforming, and I think it's important for this gathering to identify them. The debate as to whether we need counties or not is a ruse. The debate as to whether we need Senate or not is a waste of time. The debate as to whether we need wards or not is a lie, because the reality is we need all the 3. Our question must be to fix what does not work currently about all those 3 things. And I want to just mention 2 or 3 things that doesn't work. The first thing that doesn't work is, I think there is currently duplication between the Senate and county assemblies on oversight. We must fix it so that everybody sticks to their lane and we're not fighting over lanes. The second thing is there's also tough wars between the Senate and the National Assembly concerning legislation, and we must fix it. Yesterday, we were discussing about bills that have been passed by the Senate and haven't been passed by the National Assembly. We don't need bills we need acts of parliament. So we need to be sure that bills get translated to acts of parliament much faster. And that requires us to fix the role of the National Assembly and the role of the Senate in legislation. Thirdly, we need to fix the place of county laws. Yesterday I was talking with some MCA who was telling me that they have passed a law, but they haven't seen it since it was enacted. Secondly, we have laws that are passed by county assemblies, and the National Assembly, the national level also passes similar laws. Yet the Constitution is clear about division of responsibilities. Thirdly, there are laws, and I think Kenya Law Reform Commission mentioned it yesterday, there are laws that even the process of publication becomes problematic. We need to fix that process so that when county laws are passed, they actually come into effect and have meaningful issues. My last 2 points, response to Washira. Kenya's elections is extremely expensive, but I think our cost of elections has 2 problems. Problem number 1 is we made a mistake from 2010 to assume that technology equals integrity. I think our 2 experiments have now told us it is a lie. We continue buying BVR for elections. We are tempted to buy BVR for census. Even Uduma is buying BVR. We must realize that integrity will be contributed to by Kenyans and not by technology. So we must stop this fixation of thinking that the solution to our elections is to just buy equipment, because those equipment makes our elections more expensive, but they do not deliver any better elections than the ones without technology. The second aspect is I think a lot of our costs are corruption-related costs. So if we got rid of corruption aspects on procurement related to election, we'll reduce our costs by 80%. So let's just fix those aspects, and the cost of elections of Kenya will be comparable to other regions. My last point is about IEBC. As we reform IEBC, we must realize that the problem with IEBC are not the men and women at that institution. The problem with IEBC are the politicians partly sitting in this room, because we politicize our elections and we do not want an election that is full of integrity. So we must determine the kind of IEBC and the kind of elections we require as part of the reforms. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Collins. I'm glad you taught me. Yeah, kept time. Thank you very much. I hope your questions are also growing. Finally, Madam Elizabeth Kariuki, let's hear from the public, because she represents the Kenya Human Rights Commission. What is in it from the public? What are you guys saying as the non-state actors? Karibu, let's hear your views in 5 minutes. Give her a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you very much, distinguished ladies and guests. I greet you. I'd first like to start by saying that we are very proud of our partnership with the Counties Assemblies Forum. We've been in partnership for a couple of years now, and it has yielded quite good results. And this kind of debates that we are having are extremely exemplary. As the Kenya Human Rights Commission, we have engaged in the constitutional review process for very many years. Started off in 1994, where we developed a model framework or a model constitution that then became the tool for engagement, because at that particular time people were talking about constitutional review, but they weren't very clear about what a good constitution for Kenya would look like. So that was our starting point. And within the years, we've also engaged in lots of processes, amongst them the NCEC, the Forces movements, the reference group, which worked very closely with the Committee of Experts, as well as the Committee of Parliament led by Abdikadir. And we are also part of the Bombers process, in which we had 2 delegates. In the last couple of months, under the umbrella of an initiative called Kenya to Itakao Movement, we've been having conversations with communities and citizens regarding constitutional review process and the need for it. And I was actually surprised to hear Honorable Otiende say that a poll question was subjected to the public, and 70% of them said that it is necessary that we have a constitutional review. That is not the picture that we get on the ground. And from our engagements with communities, communities feel that this is not their agenda. This is not our JICO agenda. It is an agenda of the political elite. And the whole conversation around the sovereignty of the people has been completely lost, because even when you look at the things that people are advancing, they're extremely partisan, and there has been very little effort in engaging communities or the public itself to engage on this particular issue and to ask the question of what do communities want. So, and then we also have to ask ourselves, are the proponents of constitutional review acting in good faith or in bad faith? I think we started in a very wrong footing at the promulgation of the Constitution. If all of you recall, we had invited Bashir in the promulgation of the Constitution, which was a surprise to many people because the communication that had been shared was that it was Salva Kiir that was going to represent South Sudan. And it was a surprise to many people, and of course some people went out and rioted, and a lot of people were arrested on that particular day, which was completely in contravention of the freedoms that have been safeguarded in this particular constitution. And then the other example we could speak about is just before the promulgation of the Constitution, we saw President Kibaki make a lot of political appointments. And of course, the idea behind it was to appoint people before facing the hurdles that potentially are present in the Constitution that we have currently. So we have to look at the question of good faith. Are people acting in good faith? Are the proponents acting in good faith, or are they acting in bad faith? So when you look at the question of constitutional review, what is the basis? Many of us have spoken about certain things that could be changed, but what is the basis? Wouldn't an audit on the implementation of the Constitution be useful in giving us empirical data on where we currently stand and what the impediments are before we can even talk about review? I'm glad that organizations such as Katiba Institute have taken this up and have been conducting an audit, but the report is not out. But we need a strong basis and data that supports the need for or against the constitutional review process. So we need to actually understand what is the status of implementation and what is impeding implementation. For most of us that have been working on this issue, we know that one of the biggest challenges has been disregard of the Constitution and the rule of law. Court orders are given, they are ignored. Constitutional provisions are ignored. Issues such as national values and principles of governance are completely ignored, and that is where the challenge begins. But we are not talking about those things. So in the review process, how are we going to streamline this kind of values and principles that are espoused in the Constitution?
Wrap up.
And then the other issue that we need to consider is how do we achieve human rights-centered governance with all these proposals that we have? Will these proposals get us there? And maybe just to summarize, what I can say is if at all we are going to get into this process, of course there are strong grounds as to why we should. Citizen participation ought to be very critical and safeguarding the sovereignty of the people. And then there are certain elements of the Constitution that we should safeguard with all we have. For instance, the issue around national values and principles of governance, which have been completely disregarded, and then the protection on the Bill of Rights. One of the issues that I saw on the screen when people were asked what it is that they would like to change, one of the things was Bill of Rights, and it made me panic, it made me wonder, what about the Bill of Rights do people want to change? So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Round of applause for Elizabeth and giving us a view from the non-state actors. Finally, now I want to give a chance to plenary. But I know there'll be various questions, and I have like 10 minutes for it. So, Irongo, if you don't mind, I'll also need your help in terms of the gadget that you're having so that we can also pull in some questions from that line, or, so that it helps us manage that and also manage the questions, because I know I can't get all the questions. So over to you, get us that Mentimeter, and then let's do the do.
So if I can invite Kevin just to put up the Mentimeter again. And for those of you who would like to intervene on the mic, if you can just go to a mic. I think we can take 4 speakers.
Yeah, there are 3 mics, so if you can rush there, and I'll also try and balance it as much as possible in terms of gender. So I can have first 2 or 3.
Okay. So maximum 3 people. The first 3 people to the mic will go first. Kevin and the rest of us, if you can pull out your devices once again and go to a browser. And if you can go to www.menti.com and then enter the code 871817. For those of you who are at home, you can also do this in your own offices or homes. The browser, the website is www.menti.com. menti.com, M-E-N-T-I, and you can use the code 871817. So we can have the question.
Hello.
Okay. So the question is this. If there is to be a referendum on the constitutional question, what, in your opinion, members of the county assemblies and senators, should be that question? What could be that question that you would like to see there? And again, if you can keep it to no more than 4 to 5 words, that works best. Paragraphs don't work well with this technology. What question should be on the referendum? So if you type that in, we will begin to gather those comments, and then I believe we can proceed now with the other speakers.
Thank you. Thank you, Irungu. I'll let you do the reviews once we are done with the panel. So I'll start with the gentleman on the right, and then move the 3 people on the mic, and then finally the other 3, and then we go back to the panel.
Thank you. Mine will not be...
Just one question, your name and the question, shoot.
Yeah, my name is Mengech Rona, MCA from Nandi County. Mine is not really a response to the question there. It is a petition I would like to make. Now that Mr. Wachira has told us our elections are the most expensive at $36.7 compared to Rwanda at 1.5. My petition would be referenda to be done concurrently with the elections to cut down on the cost. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And then if you go ahead, if you want to pinpoint any panelists that you want to directly answer your question, you can go ahead.
I'm Karanja Wamaliamu from Nakuru. One is a comment to Honorable Senator Mutura Kironzo. You know, senators, in the Senate we have the most brilliant senators who are most experienced. But what they have been doing year in, year out is making lectures. Why don't you convert these lectures now, or what you have told us, to action? That's number one. Number two.
One question on this.
Let me do. Is the BPI constitutional? Why have a constitutional body purporting to change the constitution? Also, some senators have never even talked, even once, to the assemblies, and yet they are here being they are saying that they are protectors of the assembly. Why? And you have even not talked wherever you come from, only to be a saint when you come to Nairobi. And the last one.
Thank you. No.
And the last one. Can we devolve COB? Can we devolve
Honorable member from Nakuru.
Budget?
Thank you very much. The next lady. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My name is Honorable CPA Irene Mayaka from Nyamira County. If you'll allow me to ask 2 quick questions, being the only female.
Within a minute is fine.
All right. So my first question goes to Honorable Senator Mutula. Sabotage.
Proceed.
It's been this matter of the World Development Fund, and I would just like you to set the record straight. Where is this bill? What are the timelines? Can we just know, is it going to happen or is it not going to happen? And then my second quick question is to both Honorable Otienda Molo and my classmate in high school, Elizabeth Karaoke. It's on the 2/3 gender matter. This is a matter that is in our Article 81B. And I want to hear from you, both of you, because as it is, the parliament is not constitutional. What are you doing about this 2/3 gender? When is it going to happen? And if you know very well, 20 years from now, tables will turn. It is men who will be complaining that they want the 2/3 gender because we are taking over the world. Please let us know.
Thank you. Gentleman next.
Yes, Alex Wadegugilo is my name.
It's working. Proceed.
Okay. I'm a member of the civil society. My question to Honorable Tienda Molo is that in a country where there is no referendum law, is it possible that every time that politicians will be disagreeing, they will be subjecting the Kenyans to referendum, and bearing in mind that elections and referendums are very expensive? And when we are talking about referendum, is it possible for the Kenyan elections to be staggered so that we have separate presidential elections and county elections to depoliticize political processes in Kenya? Thank you.
Taken. Thank you. Over to the left.
Thank you. I'm Malim Masiva from Busia County, the gateway to Eastern Central Africa.
Straight to the question, 1 minute.
We all agree that there are things that need to be fine-tuned in the Constitution. we agree that there's need for change. My question is there a way we can change these things without necessarily going the referendum way? I'm directing my question to Honorable Tiende. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next.
Thank you. Kalunde Alfred, Makueni County Assembly. I think the MCA is the most endangered position in Kenya. I want to ask, and somebody asked, what are the details of Ward Development Fund to tame the crafty governors? When the road is not done, it's the MCA. When the road is done, the governor is doing his work. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Honorable Muture from Embu County. My question goes to Otedio Moro. He has admitted that the constitution, which was in the committee of experts, they compromised in most of the situation. Now my question I'm asking, what reality Kenyans have that when you go to the referendum, that we are not going to compromise again, and by which percentage that Kenyans can agree that the document is fair to them?
Thank you. Finally.
Yes, my name's Kemani Wanjiko, MCA from Kiambu County. My question goes to the senator. It is time now, we want to see them now acting. And we want, as we leave this place, they give us a timeline. Because next year, we don't want to come to this summit again with the same questions. Last year, we still had the same worries about Ward Development Fund and also the separation. We want to be getting our money directly from the Treasury, not through the executive, then to us. That one we want it to be implemented. Lastly, we want to put CAF on the table now. We are not going to come back again next year with the same issues. CAF must become now more proactive. We are more than willing as the MCAs, even to go on the streets to make sure that we are the grassroots. We get what is rightfully ours. So we are not begging, we are demanding so that we can represent Wanjiko much more better. Thank you.
Thank you. But then again also, we need also to agree that the Speaker of the Senate actually confirmed where the bill, what Development Fund bill is. It is already passed the second reading. So unless we want to actually see it, but honestly, it's already on the third reading now. I'll give you a slack because there are no many ladies asking. Just 1 minute for you.
Thank you for being gender sensitive. By name, I'm Mheshimiwa Sophie Koweje. I come from Homa Bay County Assembly. I'm putting my question to the senators, Honorable Otiende, Honorable Mtula Jr. Please, if we are really gender sensitive, can we come out clear, and when we are making the review, that in the leadership of this county, it becomes a law where we have a president male, the deputy president to be a lady. And we go to the county government to have it as a law in Kenya.
Thank you.
For us to prove that we are really gender sensitive.
Thank you
for giving me the last chance.
Thank you. I'll give Speaker Kiambu a chance and Senator Ongeri because of your consistency in the forum, in the summit. Just 1 minute each.
Thank you very much, Speaker Nairobi. I would like to do what the Governor Kisumu said about matters arising. One, we were told when the law on devolution was being constitutionalized that the county assemblies are mirrored from the National Assembly. I've got only one issue that we would like to present and ask the Senate to consider. And this is about the remuneration of MCAs. Forgetting not that speakers are also MCAs, I'm MCA number 93. And to avoid all the problems that are there, that are emerging in assemblies money-wise, we would like to ask that the following be considered in the whole, in the constitution or in the devolution.
Half a minute.
Yes, that the salary of the governor should be 75% from the president. The salary of the deputy governors should be 75% of the deputy president. The salary of the MCA should be 75% of that of the member of parliament, so that it is mirrored, so that the word mirroring is coming in. Mr. Speaker, if we do that, this issue of car loans and car grants will be a thing of the past, because If you look at the amount of money that is given to the MCAs to buy a car, it is amount of money of a car that cannot finish the whole term of 5 years.
Point taken, thank you.
Yes, I said matters arising because I want to respond.
Thank you, no.
No, listen, it's very important.
I have to be off here in
Yes.
10 minutes. Yeah?
It is important. This is what will bring the problem to an end. If there is mirroring, let it be mirrored. That what happens to members of parliament, to the senators, it is mirrored proportionally to the MCAs. So that this matter of kelele wakati wote wa pesa haifai ikwishe by putting a percentage on the salaries.
Thank you, Speaker.
No, ya mwisho
Speaker.
ni ya leo.
Speaker.
It is important about the constitution, my friend.
Speaker, I
no,
rule you out of order.
It is very important.
Please,
It is
please,
very important.
Please,
I beg you.
Please, I've given you 2 minutes.
I beg. We are here to make, this is our forum. We can manage our time. Yes,
proceed.
please.
30 seconds.
Yes. It is about what my friend Washira talked about, parties having owners. In 1999, I was a member of parliament, and I brought a motion to make Kenya a partyless state. That time, KANU was the only party, and it was owned by the owners of that time. I would like to repeat the same motion, that if Kenya can go partyless, so that there is no one who is restricted to reach the ballot box at the end of the time by being restricted by a process called nomination. This is a time when everybody will go there and let Wajiko decide at the end of the day. Tuondoe hii uchaguzi wa katikati, which is very expensive, which is favored, and which actually gets so many people out of the process. So if there are members of parliament there that can pick up from there and make
Honorable
Kenya a
Otiende
partyless
has
state.
taken note.
Thank you.
Senator Ungeri.
I beg your indulgence. The Constitution, just reminding ourselves, the Constitution gives us a clear way forward. The sovereignty of the people is vested in this Constitution. And the supremacy of this Constitution and the defense of this Constitution are all the three pillars. And this Constitution is exercised, one, through parliaments and the county governments. Executive, national executive, and the county executive. And of course, through other things. What I've noticed, all the panelists coming here today, they are trying to look for where the problem is to fix it. May I suggest the panelists, in the way of reply, that the issue which is coming out quite clearly is the issue of governance. National Assembly vs. Senate. The money bill in National Assembly and no money bills to be discussed in Senate. And yet, the devolved functions to the counties are numerous under Schedule 4. So the question is, don't you think this problem, as all the panelists, that in the process of fixing what ails us today, that one of the issues now we need to look at is the governance structures at the Senate, at the parliamentary, and also at the county assemblies level. That's one. Two.
Half a minute.
If you allow me, I'll be very grateful. The issue of money, exchequer releases. Because countries go to war either because of a boundary or a dispute. There is war here, and I've sat through this plenary all these days. The issue of exchequer releases to the county level. I think it's time either the National Assembly agrees to fast track the audit reports, which are now based on 2013, 2014 audited accounts, as one way of doing it to the current level. I'm a member of the Public Accounts Committee in Senate. Or alternatively, we all agree as one of the issues to be resolved at the referendum that the exchequer releases should be based on the annual budgets of national government to the counties. In that case, the counties then should be able to get almost 45% of the annual budget, which stands today at 3.1 trillion. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. This discussion is also live. I'll not allow you because I'll not allow you because this discussion is also happening in people's living rooms, and I would not want us to go without responses. And I have to be fair in the next 10 minutes.
Mr. Moderator, this is actually a very burning one.
Even
Kindly.
if it's where you are in an assembly, there is a speaker, and you catch his eye. It's very clear. But you are out of order. So I'll allow my panel 2 minutes as they respond and also make closing remarks so that we don't get caught out of time without having the responses. Kindly, please allow me. I'll start with you, Elizabeth. Yeah, 2 minutes if there's a question thrown to you, plus your closing remarks, and then you go like that. Thank you.
Okay. I'll respond to the question that was raised by Honorable Irene, and it was on the two-third gender rule, and she was asking, what are we doing about it? I think we have done almost everything that we could. We have tried litigation, we have tried developing a formula through a campaign that we had called the Green Campaign. Unfortunately, we only got to 800,000 signatures. We didn't get 1 million signatures. We have tried advocacy, we have done litigation, but of course the problem has been political will. You have seen that every time the matter or the motion is in parliament, there are no shows. Parliamentarians do not go to parliament and so on. So it has been extremely frustrating. It is one of those things that we must continue agitating for, because it is going to be extremely difficult. And of course, a remark was made very recently that dissolution of parliament will never happen in our lifetime. One of our leaders said that the other day, and it is completely disheartening when you see the extent to which there's actually no will to make this happen.
Thank you.
I agree with Honorable Longeri in my closing in just saying that we have serious governance issues to look at even as we consider constitutional review.
Thank you. Dr. Collins?
Very quickly, just two things. The first was the question from the MC and Busia. Is there a way for going through the change without going through a referendum? I think let's agree on the issues first before we determine whether we're going for a referendum or not. The second was from Honorable Ndichu. Uganda was partyless sometimes back. Their challenges around elections were not any less than Kenya. So I think partyless is not the solution. Let's reform our parties as opposed to thinking that let's run away from them. Kenyans don't like politicians. The solution is not to get rid of politicians. It's to reform the quality of politicians and how we elect them. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Honorable Etiende.
9 questions were directed at me. I can't answer them in 2 minutes. So if I don't answer your question, look for me. Then I will answer it. Let me say the following. One, I am not one of those who believe that you must have a referendum law to have a referendum. I am one of those who believe that you need a referendum to be properly guided, as we have done so in the past, in 2005 and in 2010. And therefore, I believe that if there's willingness, and we discussed that, we can meaningfully guide a referendum without the question of going for a referendum law. I don't agree with the question that my friend Irungo Hutton put to the contributors, that what question would you want in a referendum? Because I believe that the discussion should precede the referendum. So the referendum is a document. The second question I'll answer is, how do you signify compromise? I think you signify compromise by taking the matter to referendum and seeing whether the majority agree with it or not. In the last referendum, 68% voted yes. So it signified compromise by acceptance. In 2005, the significant majority, I think it was 50-something%, voted no. So that is how to tell and signify. I would have wished Honorable Mayaka to discuss with you the question of the gender issue, but perhaps we can pick up that discussion.
Speaker Kaberia.
Thank you very much. I may respond to a question which was raised by the moderator to the effect that if a referendum question was to be framed, what could be the referendum question by the MCs? And by the MCs. On my part, I would say that any question which is aimed at promoting good principles and objects of good governance, devolution, and in generally constitutionalism would be, and not vice versa, because that could address the issues to do with public participation, timely release of resources to the county and county assemblies, and even enactment of CAF into law, because we have the Council of Governors which has been enacted into law, and yet we are supposed to cooperate and consult as county government with the Council of Governors or with the governors, yet the county assemblies have no platform on which they can come up and address their issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Senator Mtula?
In 2 minutes, one, the gentleman who suggested that there are senators who are coming here and making this or the other, not addressing the assembly, I'm aware that first, a speaker must invite a senator to speak at the assembly. So some of those issues may be very local and should be addressed locally. A lot of my colleagues have addressed their assemblies, and therefore you cannot generalize it to them. Number two, Ward Development Fund. I'm not sure you are aware, the original version of the bill was withdrawn and another one developed with the concurrence of Senator Irungu Kangata. And therefore, we are not speaking about the same bill that was there we were discussing in Mombasa. We're discussing another version of the bill, which was then changed to accommodate the constitutional issues that were raised, and it will address those issues. Lastly, on the question raised by Senator Ongeri, whether it's corruption, whether it's tribalism, whether it's services, whether MCAs want Ward Development Fund, whether it's what Mheshimiwa Kalunde says, people are getting accolades for things that they are not doing. It's all about governance. The Constitution of Kenya 2010 was primarily put in place to change the governance structure of this country. Those of us who think that Cabinet Secretary Jean Wamala is here, with tremendous respect to you, who think that Cabinet Secretaries are defying Parliament because they are not parliamentarians or are not in Parliament, is because they think that Cabinet Secretaries are not responsive enough to Kenyans because they are not directly appointed. That is part of the governance structure that everybody is talking about. Thank you.
Thank you. Bashir Maina?
Thank you. The question of salaries and wages of MCAs and mirroring the salaries and wages of senators. You can mirror the other way up. It doesn't have to be mirrored downwards, so that we reduce salaries and whatever of national office holders. And in fact, if you ask Kenyans, that's probably the direction in which Kenyans would like it. There is a distortion in Kenya, which is that public sector wages have no relationship. Certain sectors of public sector are paid very high wages, other sectors are paid very low wages. What you need is actually wage rationalization. And then what a political office should get should be a percentage of the public wage bill. There is no reason why there's one set of salaries keep going up, but everybody else's salaries are stagnant or going down. I think it's important to have a rational wage policy. Second comment, political parties. The problem with political parties in Kenya is that they lack roots in society. If you go to Europe and you hear a party is called Social Democratic, that's a party based in labor. If you hear a party is called Conservative or Republican, that's a party based in capital. These are the owners of capital. So what we don't have in Kenya are parties actually rooted in society. Who represents maize farmers? Who represents coffee farmers? Who represents trade unionists? So what you have is parties move from issue to issue, driven by personalities, rather than being driven by the interests they represent in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Just.
Okay, yes, thank you. So mine is to urge all the legislators to legislate on matters that hinder us from attaining gender equality, key among them being sexual and gender-based violence. And as the National Gender and Equality Commission, we have come up with a model policy and the legislative framework that can legislate on the matter. And again, we also plead with you to ensure compliance, and especially for buildings to persons with disabilities. We find governors, we find CECs on 7th floor in a building that doesn't have a lift. We do not know how our special interest groups, particularly the PWDs, can reach them. And we are also urging the members of the county assemblies and also all those that work with them to practice the affirmative action programs and policies at their counties as a short-term measure as we are heading towards gender mainstreaming, so that all these things are catered for. Lastly, is to ask for a holistic approach in a constitutional review where all the views of persons with disabilities, the marginalized, the minorities, women, youth, and also the elderly are catered for. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, the ones who are watching us from live and all the ones who are here, give yourselves a round of applause. We've managed to come up with a very important discourse and been able to get the gist out of it. I think maybe Senator Zani and Honorable Ndego, who are in the steering committee, I think the only person or the only representation we missed was the Building Bridges Initiative in the panel. Otherwise, the panel was well diverse and they all did justice to the big subject, isn't it? Do you agree with that? Give a round of applause to my panel as they take their leave. Thank you so much for giving us a very interesting and very lively debate. And to the organizers, I think it's a good way of ending. We've managed to be within time. And thank you so much. If I stepped your foot by any way, I'm sorry, it's just because of the time constraints that I had. Over to you, Houghton.
Thank you very much, Honorable Sheikh Maura. Can I please request a clap for being both gracious and effective as a moderator for this session. We are very much on time, and we're now moving into the closing ceremony. We're going to change the order slightly and allow the closing remarks to be made, and then we may open up just to hear the resolutions. But very quickly, as I hand over to Professor Winnie Mutula, and with respect to my honorable colleague and friend, Otiende, on the referendum question, I think you may be interested to know what kind of questions came up in terms of the referendum question. 88 people responded to the question, what should be the question on the referendum? There are about 10 comments, 10 questions that have been raised, but I think I'll just focus on the three top questions. The first seems to be whether Kenyans should adopt a parliamentary or a presidential system. The second question is, should we reduce representation or not? And the third one relates to the issue of the constituency boundaries, whether we should reduce the numbers of our constituencies and counties while keeping the old provincial counties as an option. I don't have time to go through the rest, but they will be captured in the report. Allow me to hand over to Professor Winnie Mutula to take us through the last session.
Thank you, Irongo. We seem to be running late with the resolutions, but we'll go ahead because time is not on our side. So I'm straight away going to call Honorable George Okode to come up the podium. Okode, Honorable Okode, CAF, Organizing Secretary and Speaker, Siaya County, to get onto the podium. And that will be followed by Honorable Soy, Chair, County Assemblies. And then we'll move on from there in our closing session. Yeah. Yeah, I've told them, yeah. You have to run these resolutions are not quite ready.
I am informed that the resolutions are not ready. They will be ready shortly. So let's proceed. The chief guest, who is the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Devolution, Honorable Eugene Wamalwa, the Right Honorable Kenneth Lusaka, Speaker of the Senate, senators here present, members of Parliament, speakers of county assemblies, our honorable MCAs, development partners, ladies and gentlemen. We have successfully come to the conclusion of this fourth legislative summit. And I wish to take this early opportunity to thank the county government of Kisumu, more specifically the County Assembly of Kisumu, led by the Speaker, the Honorable Onyango Olo, for accepting to host us, Senator Outa, and the Governor of Kisumu. You told us, Senator, that Kisumu is better at night. And perhaps the reason why some of our members are not here in the day is because they overdo it at night. They did not let you down. During this summit, we have deliberated on inclusiveness of youth, women, and PWDs. We borrow from the communique of last year, the third legislative summit, and a number of lessons have been picked. We, as county assemblies, have also aligned our CIDPs with the Big Four agenda, and we remain part and parcel of the national conversation. Lastly, on the referendum debate, which I must thank the panel that was here a few minutes ago for exemplary performance. The conversation was exemplary. I am very, very elated. And I wish to say as follows, that County Assemblies Forum, through the Subcommittee on Legal Affairs under the Executive Committee, will be putting a team together on the 14th of May during the next Governing Council that will be steering the constitutional reforms, and we will have a position as CAF. To conclude, distinguished guests, development partners, we must now refocus our energies to ensure that we strengthen county assemblies. One of the issues that have come out very strongly is the issue of financial autonomy of county assemblies. And I agree with some of our members who took to the floor at the plenary, that we will not come back here to discuss about financial autonomy, anchoring CAF in law, the pension scheme bill, and other issues. These are some of the deliverables that we expect that in the next legislative summit, Senate will have delivered. My last point is an announcement for the honorable members of county assemblies. We shall have a general assembly today at 2, soon after the official closing of this summit. We will have domestic issues in this hall at 2 for us to be able to look at our own issue when the guests are gone. With those remarks, I thank you. And thank you all, and God bless you, and thank you for coming to the 4th Legislative Summit. I now wish to take this opportunity, and it is my humble duty to ask the Right Honorable Kenneth Lusaka, Speaker of the Senate, to come and make his remarks. The Speaker of Senate is the patron of CAF, and the level at which Senate has supported us is quite incredible. We thank you so much. Please give a round of applause as the Speaker comes to make his remarks. Mr. Speaker, sir.
Basi asante sana, the outgoing chair of CAF, our guest of honor this afternoon, Honorable Eugene Wamalwa, Minister for Devolution, colleague senators, colleague speakers, members of the county assemblies, members from constitutional commissions, our facilitators, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure once again to join and address you fellow honorable members and delegates at the close of this 4th edition of the Legislative Summit, Lexam 2019 in Kisumu County. Over the last few days, we have had the opportunity to meet and interact with each other, engage in vibrant and objective deliberations, both formally and informally, in an effort to make an assessment, evaluate progress made, identify gaps and challenges that can be addressed through policy and legislative interventions within the confines and spirit of our Constitution, our 2010 Constitution. It is clear from the vibrant and candid deliberations exhibited at this summit that devolution actors, especially county assemblies, have come of age, and we are making remarkable and commendable progress in terms of understanding their place, mandate, ability to identify policy gaps and readiness to articulate issues. The passion and urge to make their contributions felt on emerging critical matters and processes of national importance is an imperative that is worth embracing, timely and with potential to positively impact implementation of devolution. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, there have been numerous and diverse animated contributions and recommendations made right from the pre-summit sessions and the general sessions of this summit. I will highlight some of the most pertinent ones, which we shall crystallize and firm up further for expeditious implementation together with what has been captured in the communique. The Senate, in conjunction with CAF, shall prioritize the establishment of a joint working group to address the concerns to make the umbrella body of county assemblies functionally effective and with proper legal recognition through legislation. Just like the chairman has said, I think next year when we come here, we should not be talking about that again. We should actualize this. Otherwise, there's no need of having the next summit if we cannot implement that. This will ensure effective monitoring and implementation of resolutions made at this forum. Two, fast-tracking pending legislation that impact county assembly operations and members' welfare are also devolution compliant will be top on our agenda as a Senate. We shall work closely with our sister house, the National Assembly, to fast-track the county pension scheme, the county equitable development bills, and relevant legislation mentioned here to ensure improved service, delivery, welfare, and well-being of members of staff. Just like we said yesterday when we started, the bill that is eagerly awaited by members of the county assemblies at the third reading, and when we resume next month, is going to be given priority, and you can be sure that your welfare and issues are going to be taken care of, just like we said. And I speak as one who has been a governor, that we don't want a situation where an MCA or a ward is punished because you don't support what the executive is doing. We would want funds to go to every ward, because that's the lowest level as we speak, where you can be able to to implement whatever has been passed by the executive. So the need to involve both the Senate and county assemblies as key stakeholders in the upcoming 2019 Kenya population and household census and the delimitation of boundaries is critical. We are keen to pursue and address concerns raised at this legislative summit in regard to the absence of data protection law and the need to ensure safety of data, including issues surrounding possible duplicity of data collection from 2019 national exercise on Huduma number and the census. We will also work closely with the Council of Governors and other relevant state agencies to fast-track the enactment of an all-encompassing and overarching legislation to legitimize the regional economic blocks to enable them harness the resource utilization and investment potentials of their various member counties. We reckon that the fight against corruption should be sustained but guided by solid evidence and involve all Kenyans. Corruption causes serious deficiencies in society and robs the citizenry of their security and their social and economic rights. Towards this end, we shall continue to engage the judiciary and other craft agencies to ensure that not a single one of them is the weakest link in the fight against corruption in our country, and we will lay emphasis on proactive audit practices of programs that assess value for money to wananchi. There is need for the Office of Auditor General to be releasing timely county audit reports. This will enable the Senate and county assemblies to make timely interventions rather than acting as morticians. We urge our partner county assemblies to continue undertaking capacity development on oversight to guard against being overrun by executive arms. Assemblies should adopt innovative methods and put in place proper mechanisms for assessment of performance by each county. Towards this end, we urge our development partners to assist county assemblies to come up with appropriate scorecards on county operations. In complementing the realization of the country's development agenda, we urge county assemblies to align, and I'm happy the chair has said, and fast-track adoption of legislation that will accelerate implementation of the Big Four agenda. County governments need to own the Big Four agenda and enhance it through public participation. I therefore urge all relevant stakeholders to ensure that even financing the Big Four agenda is devolved just as other functions to ensure support, participation, ownership, and success. Honorable members, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, I want to sincerely thank the steering committee chaired by Senator Mutula Kilonzo and his team, all honorable senators and MCS for staying the course to the end. I also want to commend the various institutions that sponsored various events, resource persons, exhibitors, and all the teams from the 47 counties that have worked extremely hard to ensure this fourth legislative summit was a success. Finally, I want to thank all the delegates for the commitment and the focused participation. Just want to, I don't know whether I introduced all the senators the other day, those who are not there. I introduced all of you, or you must have known those who are here now. So without much ado, I wish all Christians, brethren, joyous and blessed Easter holidays, and all of us safe journey, masses back home and to our duty stations. It is now my humble duty and honor to welcome our guest of honor this afternoon, Honorable Eugene Wamalwa, the Minister for Devolution, to come and close the sessions. Thank you, mubarikiwe sana, mukirudi murudi salama. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, the Right Honorable Speaker of the Senate, Kenneth Lusaka, the Chair CAF, Honorable Senators, Honorable MCAs, Members of Parliament who are here. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you for welcoming me back here. I was here during the opening. My only regret was that I was not able to be here with you yesterday, particularly when you're discussing the session on food security, because I was also briefing my cabinet colleagues on the drought situation as the cabinet ad hoc chair of the drought committee. But I will be very, very keen to know the discussions of yesterday on food security so that we also have your input, your thoughts and ideas about the food security in our country today, and particularly the drought facing us. My only other regret was that I also missed the session on the regional economic blocks, and I am told there was a very vibrant debate. I heard what my learned friend, Senator Mutula, said. We are going to take it on board. This is already a policy that's before Cabinet. We'll also benefit from your input from the panel that you had here and the discussions that you had. Otherwise, I also missed the 24-hour economy of Kisumu. I'm told you've really enjoyed it for several days. And our host, Outa, is a great host, and Professor Nyongo. I heard about a particular honorable member from Kisumu County Assembly who had a very special welcome by his Kisumu counterparts. And he has really enjoyed the 24-hour economy here. Please don't be in a hurry to leave. Enjoy it until tomorrow. And stay for Easter. Outa says he'll be very happy to host you for Easter at this beautiful lakeside city of Kisumu. Otherwise, I know many of you are unhappy that our national leaders could not make it. But this conference coincided with quite a number of other conferences on matters of vital national importance, as well as international matters, including a conference that's ongoing on a continental agenda on infrastructure in Nairobi. Both His Excellency the President and the Deputy couldn't make it, as well as the second Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, who's hosting this conference on African champions in Nairobi. And we believe that whatever we are doing here and what they are doing in Nairobi is intertwined, because as we discuss our ways of strengthening devolution here, accelerating devolution, our Big Four agenda, how you can align your budget CIDPs to this, our Vision 2030. They are also looking at Africa's Vision 2063, how we can enjoy open skies, and Africa's free trade area, and how we can also have the African passport so that we are able as Africans to increase intra-Africa trade and free movement of people and goods in our country, and how we have created one of the most attractive investment blocks in Kenya in terms of creating a free trade area, bringing together over 1.2 billion Africans, together with a combined GDP of over $3.4 trillion. It's the biggest free trade area in the world, and what we are seeing is transformation of the African continent into the new frontier of development and transformation. So we are happy to be here with you, and today I'm honored to represent His Excellency the Deputy President, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, who was our chief guest today, and whose remarks I wish to deliver to you today as we close this legislative summit. But before I do that, also I would want to, because after I make my remarks, we will be closing this ceremony and receiving the resolutions before we leave. I will take this opportunity to wish you a happy Easter as you go back to your counties and to your families, and to also request you, in the words of J.F. Kennedy, who said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. We want to ask you as honorable legislators to ask not what your country, Kenya, is doing for your counties, but what you can also do for your counties. You have immense powers as legislators as you go back. Our country is facing drought. Just last night, you must have heard from the experts themselves, from our meteorological department, that indeed the long-awaited long rains might not be coming. So we must brace for hard times ahead. We must brace for famine that is facing our country, and particularly 13 counties. And maybe with the delayed rains or failed rains, we might have more counties. Apart from the 13, we might have the 23 ASAL counties, all of them affected. So we will need you as you go back to your counties to also see what you can do. I was talking to the Speaker of Wajir County Assembly, and I was very, very encouraged. He told me that before he left Wajir, they had passed a supplementary budget, actually reallocating more resources towards water tracking, towards purchase of food, as well as animal feeds, so that as we go forward, as national government, we upscale food distribution and water tracking. The counties themselves will be doing much more. So please, let's go back and be ready to work together to cushion our fellow Kenyans who are facing famine, to ensure that no Kenyan loses their life or their properties. The President has directed us to spare no effort, to spare no resource, to ensure that during this drought period, enough food and water reaches every Kenyan who needs it, so that we do not lose a life. We faced such a situation in 2017, and we were able to work with the counties and our development partners to ensure that in the entire Horn of Africa region, where many countries lost people, Kenya never lost lives during that drought. So we are looking forward, as you live here, to come into your counties, to working with you, to ensure that just the way we overcame the drought of 2017, which was severer than this one, we also overcome the drought that is facing us, that could worsen with the delayed rains or the failed rains. We will be ready to work with you going into December to ensure that this is achieved. Lastly, just to appeal to the Speaker of the Senate and the honorable senators, we know that you have undertaken to fast-track some of the bills that are pending. We'll be very, very happy that as we go forward to have these bills turn into acts, so that we can be able to do a lot that is pending because of the necessary legal infrastructure not being in place. And this also goes for the National Assembly. As we speak, we have the National Drought Management Fund with over 2 billion that has been raised by our donor partners. We cannot access these funds to help fellow Kenyans who are facing drought because this amendment is still pending before the House. Please fast track it as a matter of urgency, so that even as we move forward, when we need to receive support from our partners, they cannot do so without that fund and without following the legal infrastructure in place. So much depends on you as legislators to cushion this country against much that is affecting it today and in weeks to come and perhaps months to come. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am honored and privileged to be at the 4th Legislative Conference, that an opportunity for senators, members of the county assemblies, and key players in devolution to dialogue and evaluate critical issues concerning devolution. To be part, to testify to the great strides we continue to make in securing devolution. The strength of our nation depends on devolution. Individual and collective aspirations are best realized by coordinating and organizing efficiently at the lowest level unit of democratic governance. Our counties have been designed to optimize this efficiency in coordinating and organizing development. Therefore, Kenya's prospects as a nation should exceed the aggregate progress of devolved units. We need devolution to succeed, because a strong nation is also a strongly devolved nation. There is no contradiction between the need to disperse power and resources from the center and the imperative to build a strong nation. Devolution and strong counties and a strong Kenya are one and the same. Distinguished guests, we are here today to ensure that devolution does not become a creaky collection of parts. It is imperative that we protect what we have. We are here to make devolution stronger and better, and I have the utmost faith that we have hit the mark. I want to thank the people of Kisumu for a lovely welcome. This is a beautiful county, and it's truly wonderful to be here. I want to commend the collaboration between the Senate and county assemblies in the execution of your mandates. Your ability to work together honors Article 6 of our Constitution and is testament to the maturity and patriotism of all of you. The Senate and county assemblies are the key guardians of the legislative agenda to advance and cushion gains of devolution. The Senate has worked hand in hand with the National Assembly to enact laws envisaged in the Constitution. I believe this summit has a role to evaluate milestones achieved by the Senate in the last 6 years and further address the gaps that impede implementation of devolution. I also acknowledge that the role of county assemblies in discharging their legislative mandates so far. Distinguished guests, democracy cannot exist without oversight. The will of the people goes hand in hand with checks and balances. This is the only way to ensure probity and fidelity to the law. When devolution was created, the Constitution granted counties important responsibilities and significant resources far beyond the scope of what local governments enjoyed before. As a result, county governments are expected to operate a higher level of accountability and transparency. County assemblies are therefore watchtowers of devolution. Oversight is a sacred duty. You cannot let devolution suffer any kind of plunder on your watch. If the executive does not like the questions you're asking, that is a good thing. Ask again and keep asking until you are satisfied that there's nothing fishy going on in your counties. Oversight is nothing personal. It has nothing to do with whether you like the executive or not. It's about whether the people are getting the kind of services they were promised. There is more honor in chasing truth. Let us protect our counties, let us protect our people, and let us protect devolution. Effective legislative oversight is one of the indicators of any viable democracy. It is lauded for providing a practical expression of a check and balance in government administration, particularly in ensuring government prudence and probity. The passage of the 2010 Constitution granted significant responsibilities to county governments with corresponding fiscal powers and resources in order to carry out its mandate. The national government is committed to devolution and in fostering harmonious and consultative intergovernmental relations and capacity building at both levels of government for a better Kenya as enshrined in Article 6 of our Constitution. Distinguished guests, Kenya has committed to implementing the Open Contracting Data Standard, OCDS, to improve transparency and reduce opportunities for corruption by enhancing openness and transparency and reducing opportunities for corruption through the Public Procurement Information Portal of the National Treasury. If the tender is legitimate, put it in the open. Let everyone know that this company was given this job at this price. Eliminating secrecy will lift the veil on what goes in the dark, and the public can keep an eye on their resources. Open contracting will allow our counties to get better value for money on contracts, improve monitoring of spending and performance, and support a more competitive business environment for small and medium-sized businesses, and reduce opportunities for corruption in projects. Over the last 6 years, The national government has disbursed over shillings 1.5 trillion, including conditional grants to the counties with consistency, but revenue sharing is not enough to drive the development agenda at the grassroots. Counties should have formulated and implemented their own revenue maximization strategies. I want to commend the leadership of the National Treasury in the formulation of the County Own Source Revenue Enhancement Policy and Bill under the auspices of the IBEC, and encourage that all county assemblies familiarize themselves with a policy to facilitate its implementation at the county level. Distinguished guests, regional economic blocks have become a noteworthy innovation of the devolution experience. I commend the Council of Governors for realizing the need for pulling resources together and leveraging on regional competitive advantages. However, it is crucial that the law guides the process. I therefore call upon senators and members of county assemblies to engage with not just your county executives, but the Ministry of Devolution, which is charged with the responsibility of developing policy, and the National Treasury to ensure that whatever mechanisms you put in place to facilitate economic blocks do not contravene the law and the Public Finance Management Act in particular. Ladies and gentlemen, the successful implementation of the Big Four agenda is heavily dependent on our partnership with county governments. So far, we have enjoyed tremendous success in the rollout of UHC and affordable housing, primarily because of willingness of county governments to work with us as national government. I urge county assemblies to sustain this momentum by making sure county integrated development plans prioritize the Big Four flagship areas. Good legislation involves cooperation. Legislators need to have respectful working relationships with the executive, and in this way, they will make efficient laws and provide effective oversight. I want to reiterate the undeniable need for collaboration between levels of government, arms of government, and a vibrant engagement with our citizenry through public participation. Devolution is not at its fullest, but we have headed there, and we'll get there if we keep working together. Before I finish, and I close this summit, I'm told the resolutions are now ready. May I invite Speaker to come and read out these resolutions for us before we declare these fourth summit officially closed, and also before we go into the next session, where my good friend Osoy, I'm told his term is coming to an end. If I had a vote, I would have given you another term, my brother. But I think the honorable legislators will decide. Let the people decide. Asante sana.
Thank you. My name is George Okode, the County Assembly's Forum Organizing Secretary and the Speaker, Siaya County Assembly. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my task is very mean but very enormous, just to read to you the resolutions of our gathering here. And before I do that, courtesy demands that firstly we thank very sincerely the contributors whose views have been put into these resolutions and the participants in whichever form, active or passive. And also to sincerely thank the Secretariat who have burnt the midnight oil to ensure that we have this ready. So I will read. The fourth legislative summit held between 13th to 17th of April 2019 at the Grand Royal Swiss Hotel, Kisumu County. The fourth legislative summit